For as large as Lexus and Toyota are, they've been relatively slow in adopting full electric vehicles. Instead, they've mostly focused on hybrids and plug-in hybrid vehicles, just like this one. This is the 2024 RX450h+, the H+ indicating that this is a plug-in hybrid vehicle. And today we're going to answer where this exists in the luxury car space and why you would buy this luxury SUV over some of the other ones. By taking a look outside, inside, I'm going to show you some of the features and technology in this vehicle. We're going to try and throw a bike in the back to see how usable this SUV is. And last but not least, we're going to take it on the road to see what it's like to drive. Let's be honest, RXs of past generations have been kind of grandma mobiles. At least that's primarily who's driven them, mostly because of their bland looks and also the typically boring colors that they offered. This 2024 model aims to get rid of that stereotype. Of course, it looks a lot edgier than the old RXs of past, particularly with the grille. Of course, they went with that Predator grille for a little while, and this is maybe a variation on that, but it does look pretty cool. You also have some interesting body lines on this, particularly on the side. It's not just a sort of generic SUV like we've seen before. Additionally, the headlights and taillights do look really cool, I think. And last but not least, this nori green pearl color is a nice addition to the lineup that is able to differentiate itself from some of its competition. But what do you think about the looks of the RX? Do you think it's successful? Do you think they've gotten far enough away from the RXs of past? Leave a comment below. Popping the hood, this is where the important stuff is, of course, of a plug-in hybrid. We basically have a 18 kilowatt hour battery that will propel this car for nearly 40 miles, according to Lexus, on electricity alone. So you can plug it in at night, do your errands, and if you do happen to run out of electricity, you have this 2.5 liter 4-cylinder to take over and do the driving for you. It basically just acts like a hybrid going forward after that. Now, the nice part about this motor is that it's very simple. It's a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter. It's actually the exact same powertrain that's found in the Rav4 Prime. So we can pretty much assume it's gonna be pretty reliable going forward. Now, in terms of efficiency and power, 304 horsepower combined with all these electric motors and gas engines. Pretty quick off the line, as you'll see in the video. And then fuel economy itself, once you've depleted all the electricity, you'll get about 35 miles to the gallon according to Lexus. And for once, I'm actually beating the manufacturer estimates. I'm getting 36 miles to the gallon, and I've never plugged this thing in once. Now, while I've talked about the Rav4 Prime being that these share the same powertrains, this vehicle is actually more closely related to the Toyota Highlander than it is the Rav4, because it is, of course, a bigger SUV. But why do you buy the Lexus version instead of the Toyota version? Well, it's mostly to do with the luxury, specifically here in the interior. This is a really nice place to be. It's incredibly well insulated. It feels super solid when you close the doors. Particularly this material here, you have kind of a mix of this almost Alcantara material with this leather, and these seats feel fantastic. I usually wait to the end to talk about those, but they support you really well. They're extremely adjustable. They look fantastic with these designs in them. And then, of course, they are heated and cooled at this price point. In terms of the rest of the interior, this car is optioned with the Mark Levinson sound system, which is excellent. You know, a lot of Lexuses of past would just kind of come standard with most of the things, but they do nickel and dime you a little bit here. It starts at $68,000, but you have to pay extra for LED headlights, the Mark Levinson sound system, and other things of that nature. So a bit of a annoying thing that Lexus is once again used to just kind of mostly come with everything. Now, these options, the Mark Levinson sound system is around $1,500, and it's well worth the money because it is excellent. The rest of the design in here aesthetically is fantastic. There's very, very little piano gloss plastic, and it's in places that you never really touch. This is a 14-inch touchscreen. It's huge. It has a big wow factor. It's using Toyota's latest infotainment, which is pretty good. Sometimes I have a little bit of connectivity issues with the wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but overall it works well. You do have dials for adjusting your heat in terms of temperature, but the screen has most of the controls for your HVAC. They are sort of fixed, always on the screen, so not the end of the world, but ideally, I would like some physical buttons, as I always talk about. Plenty of USB charging ports as well. You have a pretty good size pocket in your door card for putting a large drink bottle as well. One complaint I may lob at this vehicle is this sort of strange interaction for dealing with things like your cruise control and other menu items that you interact with this digital gauge cluster. They're not labeled buttons here. They sort of vary because you have this sort of directional touchpad, and when you hover your hand over them, it will illuminate something on your gauge cluster. Keeping in mind that when I got this car, it was only showing up in the heads-up display, which is something that some people like to have in the vehicle. But if you have polarized sunglasses, during the day it's nearly impossible to see that heads-up display. So I had to go in through the settings, disable that, and then I could see these settings themselves once I touched this D-pad in the gauge cluster. So a minor inconvenience, you probably get used to it, but it's a little more complicated than it realistically needs to be. One other annoyance that I have is sort of, this is another vehicle that has attempted to recreate door handles, and I simply do not understand why. These are essentially actuated buttons that you press in order to open the door. But I've had passengers that just simply don't understand it, and it does take a little getting used to. There is at least a fail-safe where if you pull this twice, it will unlock the door, which makes me feel a little bit better because some vehicles that have this actuator, you know, there's like a pull tab somewhere down here, and it's a little less intuitive. So that part is at least nice. Same thing on the outside. There's no pull handle. You just put your hand behind the door handle and actuate a button and it opens the door. Once again, we've had door handles for so long, I don't see what the problem was with them. This is just another thing to break, in my opinion. Not saying it will, but I mean, eventually it will. Outside of that, let's talk about the rear seats. Plenty of room back there for me as an adult, although the headroom is not so great. Knee room is fine, but headroom, because of this more slanty roof for a more aggressive look, I kind of hit my head on the side rail there. Outside of that, pretty successful overall. Let's try and cram a bike in this thing before we head out on the road. Given the RX is on a larger platform than the Rav4 I tested not too long ago, and the fact that that Rav4 fit my mountain bike pretty easily, I was surprised that I had to do some finagling to get my bike in the back of this thing. It really boils down to the slightly narrow opening and very sloped rear hatch. That slope looks good aesthetically, but ultimately means less storage. At the end of the day, the bike fits, and all things considered, I guess we can consider this a success. As always, if you enjoy the bike test, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. Here we go, driving the RX. Really, it's interesting to experience this powertrain again because this has the exact same powertrain that's in the Rav4 Prime that we drove not too long ago, and I really thought highly of that powertrain. It is a plug-in hybrid, of course, as we've already established, but the fact that you can run on electricity for a little while, and then when you're out of electricity, it just becomes a regular hybrid, is really nice. And the big thing you notice with this vehicle, as I kind of just demonstrate right here, is the low down torque that this thing has. Once it gets going, it's not exactly a very fast vehicle by any means, but around town at lower speeds, this electric motor makes a big difference. So you kind of just, you get that electric torque like you do with just any other electric vehicle, and then the gas engine kind of kicks in. But being able to kind of squirt around traffic, being able to easily navigate your way through your day-to-day activities with this big assist from the electric motor is really nice, and that's the big thing that I really liked about the Rav4, and it's all present here. Now, it doesn't feel as fast as that car because, well, frankly, this is 500 pounds heavier, and it's a different class of vehicle, admittedly. This is based more on the Highlander platform than it is the Rav4 platform, so it's a bigger SUV. That 500 pounds, you feel it for sure, but it's still quick enough around town. So the rest of this, in terms of competition, what this does well compared to the competition, of course, it's the efficiency. And that's the main play here. The reason you're buying this over BMWs, over Audis, other luxury products, maybe even an MDX, is because this is getting the best fuel economy. I'm getting 36 miles to the gallon, and I've never charged it. So basically, I'm just running it like I would just any other gas car or hybrid, just out of curiosity to see what fuel economy I get. 36 miles a gallon, excellent. I just got out of that CX-5, which was not a hybrid or anything like that, just a 4-cylinder car, even smaller than this by quite a wide margin, and I was getting 22 miles to the gallon, kind of doing roughly the same kind of driving. So that kind of shows you how efficient this thing is. Everything else is like classic Lexus. I mean, it's extremely quiet. There's not a lot of wind noise or road noise to speak of, whether you're at low speeds, whether you're at high speeds. This glass is excellently insulated, clearly, because even on a windy day, as I was coming up 70, it's pretty quiet. And that's, of course, what you want out of Lexus. The other aspect, of course, is the ride. The ride is pretty great. It's once again, it's exactly what you want out of a Lexus. We always have to frame our minds around what a car is geared for, right? Like who the buyer is, what the intended purpose is. This is not meant to carve up a canyon. Obviously, we're out here because it's a beautiful day. It's a nice view in the fall here. To give you guys a perspective, this is a little more of a fun sports car road, but it can still do this while not falling apart. So while it does have compliance to it, the shocks are very well dampened, and ultimately they provide a good amount of comfort that you would expect out of Lexus, but they don't fall apart when you get in these twisties. Yes, there's really no steering feel, but who cares about that in a Lexus? It's quiet, it's well composed, and all the inputs act sort of, I'll just say normally. I know that's kind of like a weird thing to say, to expect something or not expect something to act normally, but so many cars kind of get in their own way with the inputs. The nice part about this thing is that it just acts like a regular car. It doesn't get in your way. The brake pedal, the gas pedal, it's all calibrated really well. And that's something that you don't want to take for granted, because in hybrid vehicles, sometimes that handoff of regenerating electricity with the brake and the physical brakes can be a little more abrupt. So that's where this car is just calibrated so well. Outside of some of the only complaints I have, outside of price, and we'll get to price here in a minute, is really just minor stuff. So things like these door handles, I don't know why they're non-traditional door handles. You get used to that. Same thing with this climate control stuff. I would like more physical buttons here, but it's overall not too bad to navigate through. Ultimately, the only other thing really is price. I mean, this is an expensive vehicle, $70,000 for this thing. But when you consider that a Rav4 Prime is around $50,000, it doesn't seem as bad, because this is a significantly nicer experience. The materials are significantly nicer. This Mark Levinson sound system is excellent. If you want an insulated car that is efficient, it's a really nice product. And Toyota/Lexus has clearly put a lot of resources into making sure that it's good. I think, end of the day, as we mentioned, compared to some of the competition, it's all about that efficiency piece. But I've really enjoyed my time with this. As I mentioned, it doesn't get in its own way. It doesn't try and do anything that it shouldn't. It acts just like a Lexus. And if you can swallow the price tag, it's not a bad vehicle. And Lexuses tend to hold their value quite well. Electric vehicles, on the other hand, maybe not so much. So the fact that this is a plug-in hybrid, I'll be curious to see what it looks like long term. But ultimately, I think somebody who is interested in an RX traditionally will continue to be interested in this one, because it does all the good RX things. And the last piece here is the fact that this has the Rav4 Powertrain, which is a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter engine. Toyota has had, admittedly, some issues with some of their turbocharged products as of recent. Don't know if they're going to be reliable long term, but I think what we can say for sure is that this 2.5 liter has proven to be very reliable, and this car is going to go for a very, very long time. So reliability, efficiency, and luxury, that really has always been the RX way, and that's exactly what this is. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As I mentioned, I've really enjoyed my time with this vehicle for its intended purposes, and its intended audience. It's, I think, a fantastic product. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far in the video, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.